चित्तस्य पदेन वाचाम् मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पातञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि. I prostrate with folded hands before Patanjali, who benefited mankind by delivering yoga for mind, grammar for speech, and by removing impurities of body through medicine. So in the last class, we were studying the sutra which deals with the idea of vairagya, detachment. And as we told in 2 sutras, this vairagya has been described. In the 15th and the 16th sutra of the first chapter, the vairagya has been described. In the 15th sutra, they speak of the process by which we can develop detachment from all the desires which are manifested. In our day-to-day life, we find that there are certain desires which has become a detrimental factor for my progress, spiritual progress, as well as my secular progress. In both the ways, I find there are certain obsessions which is a detrimental factor. A very crude example, the drug addiction or any sort of addiction. Now there is a process of getting rid of it. Even we find in all the rehabilitation centers, they follow that process. What? Instead of trying to get rid of the obsession or the addiction in one go, which is never possible, there's a gradual process. Gradually, what? That you first don't ask the one who is addicted to leave the drug in one go. We ask them to reduce the dose and prolong the gap between the 2 dosages which they used to take. And gradually, by prolonging the gap and by reducing the dose, gradually that person develops the power to curb all those desires which were proving to be highly detrimental for his or her health and well-being. So we studied that in that the sutra, let us just repeat the sutra, drishta anusravika vishaya vitrishnasya vashikara sangya vairagyam. So as we told that the word vashikara sangya means that spontaneous detachment. The spontaneous detachment that develops for the things which are seen and the things which I have heard of. Anusravika you will find in all the traditional texts, the translation is for all the heavenly desires. That people of the past and even in the present have an idea that after death, I'm going to enjoy in the heavens with my forefathers, with my ancestors. I will be enjoying, my life will be continued there. All the sufferings will be annihilated. Only the good of this life, that will remain and I will enjoy. That's the idea of heaven we find in all the religion. That has been spoken of in the traditional way as Anusravika, which I have heard of, which is not easily available. But even not only heaven, in our day-to-day life, there are so many things which is not achievable by me immediately. But I know if I have money, if I have the means, I can achieve them and they are going to give me tremendous joy and happiness. Even there also Anusravika for me. So whatever it may be, whatever desires is available and whatever I've heard of, if I am always attached to them, they become the detrimental factor for my secular as well as the spiritual well-being. So I have to develop detachment. What type of detachment? Which is Vashikara Sangya. Means I have developed total control, where, as in the Bhagavad Gita, it has been mentioned, it's just like the example given in the Bhagavad Gita is a tortoise. When the tortoise is in any danger, immediately you will find what it does. It withdraws its limbs and its neck and head inside the shell. So Bhagavan Krishna in Bhagavad Gita is saying that Vairagya, with Trishna, detachment is something like that. That now, whenever the sunset objects, whenever ambition, desires are there in front of me, my senses, my mind, as it projects out and tries to get them. But by practice, I can, just like a tortoise, repel back. Instead of getting drawn by them, I can repel my senses, my mind from it, and it becomes spontaneous. Just as the way the tortoise never decides. It's a reflex. It never decides that there is some danger, so let me withdraw my limbs, my head. It almost happens spontaneously. A little touch, even if it is not sin, immediately we find it has withdrawn. It is something spontaneous. So Vashikara Sangya speaks of that spontaneity. But that doesn't come in a stage. As in the last class we told, there are stages. Yatamana, Vyatireka, Ekendriya. These are the three stages. Yatamana means when I'm trying. Vyatireka, I have succeeded to a certain extent. Ekendriya, there is no physical expression that I have the desire. But it is still lingering in my mind. That Eka Indriya, that one Indriya is the mind. The mind is the ultimate Indriya, is the sense, which is processing the information which is gathered from all the senses. So that is the ultimate sense organ. It remains there, it's lingering there. A trace of it is in that mind, but you have developed the power not to express it. It just remains in the mind, but you are not expressing it. So some sort of enjoyment is there by thinking, though there is no physical expression of it. That also goes away by effort, and then you reach the state of Vashikara Sangya, where renunciation has become totally successful. The desire has totally disappeared from your mind. Renunciation has become spontaneous. The thing which used to afflict you through attraction now has become just the opposite. Whenever it is present, instead of drawing you towards it, automatically the reflex has changed. It allows you, it just enables you to withdraw spontaneously, and that is the Vashikara Sangya. In the last class, we gave the example of Ramakrishna. In his life, we have seen that when he renounced the wealth, he won't touch any metal, no coin, and it became so, this idea became so internalized that it changed his reflex system. Even unknowingly, if he would touch any metal or coin, immediately he used to feel as if he has been stung by a scorpion. Terrible pain. Narendranath has actually tested that. He never believed, he doubted, and he tested, and he was amazed to see that it is possible. And that's why we will find the complete works in 2 or 3 places when Swami Vivekananda is defining education. He is saying that education is not just gathering of information. The word which he is using is something very significant. Education is the nervous association of ideas. Nervous association. That the idea of renunciation is there. It is no more just an academic knowledge. It is no more just something which is in my intellect. It has become a part of my nerve. Just the reflex, the way the reflex become a part of your nerve. The reflex is nothing but the association of an idea with your nerve. It is the nervous association of idea. Something, just if I touch hot body, even in sleep, my hand will be repelled without taking any conscious decision. That's the reflex. That's the nervous association. So Swamiji is saying real education is that. Unless we can convert the ideology into nervous association, that is a mere intellectual knowledge. It has nothing to do with the overhauling of our personality. So here we find that through the life of Ramakrishna, Swami Vivekananda has seen that how the scriptures has been exemplified. The Yoga Sutras would have no meaning. We would have thought them to be some extravagant utterances, some poetic utterances which has no practical application in our life unless it was exemplified through the lives of the sages. Their lives is a living commentary of the scriptures. The scriptures become meaningful when we see that what the ideology has been spoken of there is being exemplified through the lives of the saints, seers, and sages. And we then find it's so meaningful, it's significant, it's possible. And that was spoken in the 15th Sutra. So now we thought that we might have an idea that's the only way to take care of all our attachments. Then there is no need to define renunciation anymore. But as in the last class we told, in the 16th, the next sutra, they say there is another vairagya, which is superior to this. That is para. Let us read the sutra. I will share the screen so that it becomes easy for you to understand. I will go to the sutra. How to get rid of this? So here, the 16th sutra. So what it is, the sutra is tat param purusha khyate guna vaitrishnam. Tat param purusha khyate guna vaitrishnam. As in the last class, you remember, we told that actually in our mind, the way, the process which has been spoken of in the 15th sutra, with that process, we can take care of all the desires which are manifested, which I can see, which I can feel. But Yoga Sutra says there are innumerable desires in my subconscious mind, which is not yet visible. To give a common example, suppose you really like some delicacy. So it's a cheesecake, give an example. You have tasted, you really relished. Now, for long time you haven't tasted that. And suddenly, after a long time, someone brings the cheesecake and places it in front of you. What happened? For the time being, you forgot. You have not tasted the cheese cake for a long time. So for the time being, you forgot. But the moment, because of the change of the environment, when the thing is there in your presence, that desire which was not manifested becomes manifested. And there are innumerable such desires. And just here we give an example. Now we will try to find out in Yoga Sutra, through the Yoga Sutra, it will be discussed later in some other sutra, the process of transmigration, that there are so many desires which are lying in our psyche, in the subconscious mind, of which I am not aware of. Now, how to get rid of all of them? It becomes quite disheartening if, after all, the spiritual evolution speaks of getting rid of desires. How can I get rid of so many innumerable desires which is hidden in my psyche? As Sri Ramakrishna used to give an example. What is the example? That once he was passing to the bank of the Ganges. In those days, the Howrah Bridge in Calcutta was not built. It was yet to be built. But there were some floating bridges. The floating bridges for all the vehicles to pass through, all the goods to be carried from Calcutta to Howrah. Some floating bridges were there. And those bridges were, the design was such that there's floating bridges so that the bridge may not be washed away. All those innumerable boats with which that bridge was constructed, they were tied to the bank with the help of chains. And there were innumerable chains with which all those boats were tied to the bank so that they don't flow away. They remain in the place where they're supposed to be. Now, Ramakrishna was a master of observing and giving examples. Any situation he can just convert into examples. He told a very interesting thing. This bridge is just like our psyche. This bridge, you see, how it is like our mind? There are so many chains are there which is keeping this bridge intact. By accident, if one of this chain just tears off because of rust or because of stress, strain, it tears off. Still the bridge won't be washed away because there are so many other innumerable chains to keep it intact. So now you will understand what a wonderful example Sri Ramakrishna is giving, which has something to do with the idea of Vairagyam. That somehow, with a lot of endeavor, I have torn off one of the chains. But still, I continue with my limited sense of individuality, totally engrossed in ignorance, because there are so many innumerable chains which is binding me still. I cannot get rid of them one by one. It is almost impossible. So what's the way out? So in the last class, we just ended with that idea that whenever there is a flood, there are two types of relief. One is the short term and another is the long term. The short term, immediately we go out, supply the afflicted ones with food, provide some shelter. But when the flood is gone, they again go back to their place. But as that place is flood prone, so what happens? Every year the flood comes back. So we have to think of some long-term relief so that they are no more distressed every year. So along with the short term, when the flood is there, of course, we have to think of providing them with the food and shelter. That's the short term. Long term, we take some measures. We take up some village as a project and build houses on the pillars, so that even when the flood is there, their residence is in no way affected. The upraised pillars, their house is in quite a good height. So what happens? The water flows beneath the house. They can still continue to stay there. Such projects have been taken by the Ramakrishna Mission. You will find in those villages that they generally use the hand pump for drinking water. So now if the flood is there, the hand pump will be immersed. So you will find that it is in the upraised platform. You have to climb the stairs and go there and use the water. Why? That when the flood is there, the hand pump is not immersed. The school buildings have huge halls so that those who go there for giving food, supplying food, they have the place, the huge place for cooking, for other activities. They have the huge space. The school buildings are used, which again are on some upraised pillars. So all those measures are the long term. Similarly here, when in our day-to-day life we find that there are a lot of attachments, some of them are manifested. We have to take them, we have to take the short-term measure by trying to deal with it consciously, as has been indicated in the 15th Sutra. Now, what 16th Sutra says is something wonderful. That there is a way, there's a long-term measure by which I can get rid of all the desires, vyakta as well as avyakta, in one go. But it takes time. I have to get rid of the immediate desires, otherwise I cannot calm down my mind. So once I can calm down the mind to a certain extent by taking care of my vyakta, all those vyakta vasanas, now I can resort to some practice with a calm mind to take care of all vasanas, which are even not visible, which are not manifested. and they can be get rid of in one go, but it takes some time. It's a long-term uh, distress relief. Just the way in the flood we have the relief, here we can get relief from this cycle of birth and death, these afflictions related to this cycle of birth and death in the long run by practice that has been spoken of in the 16th Sutra. What's that? That is supreme non-attachment. That is param. Tat param. What is supreme? Which gives up even the qualities, the guna, and comes from the knowledge of the Purusha. Tat param Purusha khyate guna. Means the Purusha khyate is the practice by which you get rid of the gunas, three gunas, sattva, raja, tama. So now if I just translate literally, it doesn't make much sense. So today, let us try to go into the details to understand the idea behind this sutra. So first, that as we mentioned that vasanas are two types, vyakta and avyakta. The vyakta vasanas have been taken care of by the process which has been mentioned in the 15th sutra. And this sutra speaks of the process by which we can get rid of all those unmanifested desires. So what those unmanifested desires are, what actually are the manifested desires? Let us try to understand it through the process of transmigration as has been described in the Yoga Sutra, in some other sutras, as it has some context here. So we will bring the idea of that sutra here to understand the process of the transmigration and how it is related to the Vyakta Vasana and the Avyakta Vasana. So as we know that we cannot, our mind is constantly having vrittis, the modulations. These thought modulations can be two types. One is aklishta vritti and other is the klishta vritti. So these terms are technical, but once we explain, we'll find it is very simple. The idea is aklishta means non-afflictive. There are so many things. When I suppose in my presence there is a book, I see the book, I get the knowledge it is a book. My emotions are not related to it. It is non-emotive knowledge. It gives me the knowledge, but there is no emotion linked with it. Such type of knowledge with which our emotions are not linked. Our sense of affliction, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. Neither I like it, there is no attachment, nor dvesha, nor do I hate it. There is no question of fearing it. So it is just gives me a knowledge. A pain is lying, so many things in our life. There are so many things which are in no way linked with our emotions. So those are the jnana vrittis. It just gives the knowledge. It in no way is linked with our afflictions or emotions. So they are all aklishta vrittis. So the vrittis are never lost. Immediately they get converted into sanskara. They remain as sanskara, as sublateral impression in your psyche. So from the jnana vritti, you get the jnana sanskara. You see the pain, you get the knowledge of the pain that remains in your psyche, in the subconscious mind. Again, much later, when again the pain is placed before you as a smriti, as a memory, it comes back. Oh yes, I know, I have seen it previously. This is a pain. But with this, no emotions are linked. So as a result, what happens? As a result, what happens? This type of vrittis are in no way going to harm me or bind me. And there is a pragya vritti, that is also aklishta. We will take it up later. For the time being, just know that aklishta vrittis are two types, jnana and pragya. So jnana we have understood. Pragya we will take it up later. The other is a klishta. As we told, the moment you see any of your relations, your siblings, your parents, your husband or wife, or even your own house, after a long time you're returning from a distance, you see the house, immediately an emotion wells up. Oh, this is my house. This is this ahamta, ahankar and mamata, that me and mine, these emotions builds up along with the knowledge. They are all afflictive. Any knowledge which is related with raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. That seeing something I get attached, raga. Dvesha and abhinivesha is the fight and flight response. Suppose I see a barking dog, immediately I get afraid of it. And if I have the power, I most probably have a walking stick in my hand, I show it, it runs away. That's the expression of fighting, dvesha. Or sometimes I find that all those means is not helping. It is about to jump on me. Then what I do, I run away from it. That is flight. That is abhinivesha. I fear death. I fear the damage which may happen to this, my individual existence. I run away. Either I am afraid of it, and if it is it is beyond my control, I run away. There's fight and flight response. So these are the basic kleshas, afflictions, which is linked with the knowledge. The dog which I see is not something just a jnana. Immediately my afflictions get related to that. So those are all the bhoga vrittis. The klishta vrittis are the bhoga vrittis. Means all our emotions gets linked with it. And that also correspondingly creates bhoga samskara. I saw the dog today, I was scared. Again, the next time when I see, because it was hidden in my psyche, again it comes back as memory. Now all we have to deal with is actually this klishta vritti. Now this bhoga samskara and bhoga smriti, that results in karma. When I see the dog, I run away immediately. That seeing results in an action. When I saw the pain, I had nothing to do with it. It was just lying there. I had just the knowledge. The book was there, or something with which I have nothing to do. I got the knowledge. So, but there was no immediate response. But bhoga vritti is always followed by response. Either if it is a cheesecake, I get drawn to it. If it is something scary like the barking dog, I run away from it. So this bhoga samskara and bhoga smriti results in karma. So in our life, all actions results from this, not from the jnana vritti. So this karma has two types of effect. This Yoga Sutra is very scientific. One has an individual aspect. The karma gets converted into karma samskara. Means once I do an action, that itself again becomes a samskara. I develop a tendency to do it again and again whenever such similar type of circumstances arise. That is a samskara. See, all these karma samskara and these bhoga samskara, they get converted into vasana. They're all hidden in my psyche. This is the individual aspect. And there is some collective aspect of this karma, which gets converted into karmashaya. This is a wonderful idea. Without an example, it is very difficult to understand. Karma ashaya. Ashaya means receptacle. To give a common example, we gave that example in some previous class, but now to relate it to the context which we are discussing, I will again relate it. What's the idea? Suppose a small child has started the education. At the beginning, it doesn't like to study. And gradually, by the repetitive process, the teachers, the parents, everyone tries to bring home the idea, the utility of it, and gradually develops the idea, I have to do it. And by repetitively doing it, gradually develops a liking for it. It has get converted into samskara. And now we find once it gets converted into liking, the child likes to study. And as he progresses through the various grades, we find what is the important thing has happened. As he has started liking the studies, he is interested in all the subjects which is taught, and it is being reflected in the grades which he is getting. So he's interested in all the subjects. Now, gradually he progresses, he goes to the 12th standard. Now is the time from the school he is going to the university. Now, as he's interested in all the subjects, he has good sanskara, that good vasana for the liking of all the subjects is there in his mind. But now he's in the juncture where he have to choose a particular course of study. Suppose the student get good marks in all the subjects because of the liking of all the subjects, he has performed well in all the subjects. Now the choice comes that he or she may choose a particular stream. He or she chooses, suppose, the medical stream, wants to be a doctor and wants to get admitted to the medical college. Now, very interesting. His or her karma has resulted in the liking for studies. That's the vasana. But his or her karma is in no way going to build up the medical college. That is the collective, the cosmic effort, the collective effort of the entire society. You give the tax, the government with the he's taking the with the help of the tax is building up those huge universities, colleges. It is already there. My action is in no way directly associated with the entire medical college, the building, the infrastructure which is existing there. So this now you will understand the ashaya means receptacle. My karma in one way in the individual it is helping to create vasana. In another way it is gravitating me to a particular receptacle where a few of those vasanas, not all. Once you get admitted to the medical college, your liking for the biological science, that only will now fructify. You liked all the subjects in the school, they will be shadowed by your liking for the biological science. That will become vyakta. And that will find expression as jati ayu bhoga. I'm giving the example of medical student, but actually in the process of transmigration, the same thing happened. That we have so many likings, the thing of all those likings, the thing which is very prominent, that decides the environment in which I will be taking birth. Many, with the transmigration, there are many questions. Many say it's a totally genetic procedure where it has to do with the genes of the father and mother. How come the soul can transmigrate? So those who think that way, I will just ask them one question. Suppose you are watching the TV in your house, and for some reason, because of the defect in the hardware, suddenly your screen becomes totally blank. You see nothing, and your TV is dead. Now what you do? You buy another TV, new TV. Reject this old TV, and now you connect it to your mains, to the antenna, and the same program is transmitted. Now it's only a small child. If you ask a small child from where the thing is transmitted, by searching all the cables, at last it may go to the antenna and say, oh, it is from the antenna it is transmitted. Is it correct? No. So the one who says it is in the chromosomes from where everything is transmitted, it is just like the child who is saying from the antenna everything is transmitted. The cosmic mind is like the transmission center from where this body which is being built by in the parents, in the mother's womb, is just like the new TV. But it gets connected through the transmission, that if you just search really physically, you will end up with the antenna or with the chromosomes or the genes. But there is the mental aspect, which has nothing to do with the physical aspect. Just the way the TV, the transmission center is transmitting, that we are a part of that cosmic mind, all the individual minds are the part of a cosmic mind. So I'm just giving an idea to just make this idea clear. The transmigration is possible. It's not the way we think it's a total physical thing. No, it's not a total physical thing. The mind is something which is not physical. It's like the transmission. It just, the moment it gets a proper body. What the proper body? As per my sanskara, the parent who has developing the body, the proper body is being developed, that like just like the transmission center, you go and tune it, the TV gets on. Similarly, that body gets enlivened by the transmission of the mind. So whatever it is, but just we are giving an example that it is possible. It is possible. And even nowadays, actually there are a lot of biological proof of what I'm saying. If you read the same example is not mine, a very famous book, you can note it down, The Biology of Belief. It's a very famous book. It is one of the best sold books. It's a bestseller. And there, in the epilogue, this example is given. This is suppose the TV, your picture tube gets blown off, and then you bring a new TV. Is it the TV from somewhere from the TV where the transmission is coming? No, the same transmission which was there previously is again, you're tuning it to the new TV, it is coming. So you're getting a new body. but the Sukshma Sharira is the same. So that the Sukshma Sharira chooses a body, just the way you chose the medical college. So here also this body is not the result of your karma directly. It is the cosmic effect. It is there, in which as per your samskara, you come and as if you settle there, get implanted there, get transmitted there. And then what other thing happens? Now that through that vipaka, through that process of transmigration, your jati, ayu, and bhoga is determined. Just the medical student's jati, he's a medical student. Ayu, the number of years he or she is going to study. Bhoga, experience. Now, those who are entering the medical college, all are of not the same caliber. Some are really good students who really got good grades and really are very, very intelligent and concentrated. They pass through the course very easily. And there are many who will be struggling through the course. So the bhoga is not same. That I have become a medical student, that doesn't mean that for me now everything is just all green. As per my skills, as per my caliber, the bhoga can be different. The ayu can be different. So just see, even in the process of transmigration, the same thing happens. Though we are all born as human, the span of life may vary. The experiences we have may vary. Now through this jati, what happens? Particular vasanas filters, not all the vasanas. Some of the vasanas which are not suitable for this jati, they will remain avyakta. Only those which are favorable for this jati, for this species, they will filter and decide your ayu and bhoga. A common example, a funny example I will give to explain this idea. What's the funny example? So suppose as per the process of transmigration and as per the process of evolution, even we believe that we have gone through many births, and most probably we were we have gone through some animal births also. Most probably we were some grazing animal, and our food was the grass. That's on which I used to feed, and it was something we really relished as a grazing animal. We had tremendous vasana for that, tremendous liking for that. Now, if all the vasanas were vyakta, as a human being, when I take birth as a human being, in my previous birth when I was a grazing animal, my liking for the green grass would force me to salivate just seeing the green grass, but it never happens. Why? For this particular jati, for the human birth, that vasana is not appropriate. So it is there. Again, if I have to take birth as a grazing animal because of my karma, again I have to take birth, then again that will be manifested. But in the human birth, it will not be manifested. Just for the medical student most probably as a student in the school, he developed liking for music. But when, because of the academic pressure, all those got hidden. Much later, when he or she is an established doctor, and now most probably at the fag end of his life, when the responsibilities, he has been released from the responsibilities. Now again, that love for the music which he or she had as a student, that may become vyakta, because now the situation is favorable. It got shadowed because of the responsibilities and the situation of life. It got shadowed for the time being. The same thing happens here. As per the jati, as per our situation in life, so many vasanas remain hidden. So here this sutra is actually dealing with all those hidden vasanas. So now the vyakta vasanas I have taken care of, as has been mentioned in the previous sutra. Now all those vasanas again, in this life somehow, I managed to deal with those manifested vasanas. I was an integrated personality. But again, those avyakta vasanas will result in my another birth. And where again they will manifest and I have to deal with them. How long I have to deal with them one by one? It seems it is almost impossible, but there is a way out. That has been spoken of in this sutra. Now, what's this? These all vasanas are because of kleshas, as we have seen that jnana vritti and the bhoga vritti. The bhoga vritti is because of the kleshas, klishta vasanas. These vyakta vasanas are under the influence of raga, dvesha, and abhinivesha. That we saw, that which are all the attachments and fear and hatred, all those things which are manifested I can deal with them. That those are all the Vyakta Vasanas, as we have seen in the 15th Sutra. They can be controlled by Vashikara Sangya, as we have seen in the previous sutra. By developing spontaneous detachment gradually, I can get rid of them. Now, how to develop this, how to get rid of the Avyakta Vasanas? As Avyakta Vasanas are unmanifested, they are not under the sway of Raga, Dvesha and Abhinivesha. For the time being, they're shadowed. I don't feel any liking or fight and flight response. Nothing is acting on it. I am not conscious of them, but they are there, just like a seed which is yet to sprout. Even in the pyramids, some seeds have been found which were there for thousands of years. When someone brought it out and planted it and sowed them, immediately it started growing. The sapling came out of it. So this, as a seed, all those Avyakta Vasanas may remain hidden, but it will come out again at a particular time. But the thing which we have to understand, whether a Vasana is Vyakta or Avyakta, they are all hooked to Asmita. These ideas we will be repeating again and again, so that to bring the context. If you remember that we spoke of Pancha Klesha. These afflictions are 5. Raga, Dvesha, Abhinivesha are the last 3. The cause of that are Ajnana and Asmita. That when the conscious principle comes in association with the mind, because of ignorance, the mind appears to be conscious. And the conscious principle thinks itself to be the mind. And then the question of ego comes. The conscious principle, which is in no way the mind, starts itself thinking to be the mind. And this association of the conscious principle with the psychophysical existence is Asmita. And the moment the Asmita comes, what happens? As we gave that example, if you remember, even in a small microbe, that small body, what has happened? The conscious principle got associated with it. Now, the conscious principle, which is non-local, starts thinking, I am this small bacteria. The moment it starts thinking, 3 things happen. In a petri dish, to find out whether there are some microbes, what you have to do? Look to the microscope. You will, at the beginning, you may find they are appearing as inanimate, randomly moving particles. Now, to find out whether some of them are animates, have life, you just have to put a drop of nutrient in the center of the petri dish. And you will find among all those randomly moving particles, a few have gathered directions. They're moving towards it. What has happened? The moment the conscious principle gets associated with that microbe body, it thinks this is me. Actually, it is beyond the psychophysical existence. It is always there. But because of its association, seeing its reflection there, it starts thinking that it is me. If it is harmed, I will be harmed. If it is nourished, I will be nourished. So when you give a nutrient, so now you find that it is having life. It is moving towards it, raga. And if I give, instead of some nutrient, if I give some toxin, immediately I will find the same. The so-called apparently appearing things appearing as particles, which were moving towards it, then they'll start running away from it. The direction have changed. That is the dvesha, abhinivesha, fear of death, hatred. So now you will understand the moment, because of asmita, the raga, dvesha, abhinivesha finds expression. Through the entire process of evolution that is happening. So if I get rid of asmita, then the raga, dvesha, abhinivesha automatically falls off, because this asmita is the cause of raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. So here Yoga Sutra is taking us that whether the vasanas are vyakta or avyakta, need not bother. The things which are immediately disturbing me, take care of them with the Vashikara Sangya. Now with the apparently calm mind, take care of all the avyakta vasana by trying to get rid of that asmita. That asmita is just like the hub of a will. All the desires are like the spikes. If you just get rid of one spike, still the will remains intact. But if I get rid of the hub, the entire will collapses. So this is the long-term effect. I have to take care of the asmita. Now we will find there are so many religious beliefs, so many varied beliefs. Some are bhakta, they say God is, I am. Some says God is bogus, I am the conscious principle, and that is the only thing that exists. But very interesting, whatever may be your belief, if you're sincere in your practice, you are constantly hammering the asmita. How? A devotee, when he thinks, I am eternally associated with the divine. When you think you're eternally associated with the divine, you just try to find out what you're doing. Do you think as this body mind you're eternally associated with the divine? No. No one thinks that. That even when I am dead, the real me, is in eternal association with the divine. It was, it is, it will be. This is just a passing phase. And the one who thinks I'm the conscious principle, for him also the same idea. This little me, for the time being, is just a passing phase. I was, I am, I will be. So whether you are a jnani or a bhakta, with your practice, instead of fighting with what you believe, just be sincere in your practice. You are hammering this limited asmita and trying to get rid of that hub. So this is the Purusha Khyati. Purusha Khyati means, Khyati means the word Khyat in the Sutra. Let us go back to the Sutra. What was the idea? The Sutra was saying, Guna Vaitrishnam Purusha Khyati. What is this Purusha Khyati? To understand the word Purusha Khyati, let us come here. This Khyati means vritti. Each and every mental modulations with particular knowledge content is the Khyati, the knowledge which is coming out from that mental modulation. Now what I'm doing with my spiritual practice, each and every vritti, I'm trying to contemplate on the idea of my inherent divinity, whether as a bhakta or as the conscious principle, whatever it may be. And that is the Purusha Khyati. Constant, Purusha Khyati means thinking of your conscious, thinking of the dimension of your existence, which is eternal, which is ever conscious, from which this little me has been projected, which is just a flow, which is just a temporal existence. But that's the real me. If I can constantly think of that, either as a bhakta or as a jnani, then what happens? I am constantly hammering on this asmita, which is linked with all the vyakta and avyakta vasanas. So if I can get rid of the hub, the entire thing will collapse. That's the idea here of the Purusha Khyati. That I'm constantly, if I do it constantly, what happens at last? These words are very important. In some other sutra, this word smriti parishuddhi will come. Refinement of memory. At present, all my memory is linked with the idea, this limited psychical physical existence is me, me, me. By this Purusha Khyati, by constantly contemplation, as a bhakta or as a jnani, whatever process is as per your temperament, do it seriously. That will enable to purify your memory. That old memory will fall off. The new memory, the constant awareness that I am beyond this limited idea of asmita. This will help you to get rid of the asanas, this asmita, which is the hub behind all the vasanas, the vyaktas as well as avyakta. As a result, what will happen? You will transcend the stimuli-response conditioning. All the guna vaitrishna, the guna means stimuli-response. How you know? That tamas is something we say is dark. It is a tanmatras. If you study the scriptures, they say tamas is dark and it is a tanmatras. And the panchabhutas. What are the tanmatras and panchabhutas? We think that external objects are the panchabhutas, which is made of subatomic particles, and that are the tanmatras. It's a wrong way of understanding. Actually, tanmatras means piecemeal perception. Tat matra is tanmatra. What? When I'm seeing a red flower with fragrance, I think it is a whole, but the perception never happens as a whole. It's not that the flower with the smell at a time is going to a particular part of your brain, the brain which is the organ of your mind, and the perception happens in one place. No, there is a color perception center from where only the color is perceived. Tat matra, only the color. There is another smell perception center through which the smell is perceived. If you're touching the flower, it has a particular texture, smooth texture. That is again perceived by the touch center. All these now perceptions, piecemeal perceptions, are synthesized. It's not happening in the same way, in same time. Just the way when you're watching the movie through the projector, the light is projected. The sound system is projecting the sound. Actually, in the screen, when a character is speaking, there is no noise coming from the lips, but I feel, as both are happening spontaneously, I feel that the character is speaking. But actually, the sound is coming from the sound box. In the screen, there is no noise. But what is synthesized in the brain, that is our perception. I feel that character is speaking. And that is happening with all our perceptions. In our brain, all the perceptions are piecemeal. But again, it is not something that redness is outside which I perceive. The concept of redness is already there. The outside redness is just a suggestion to enkindle that redness within. All the idea of the colors, all the sounds are already in their mind. Unless the perception is happening, they are in the darkness. If the mind is blank, there can be no knowledge. The tabula rasa means blank mind. It's even in the science they say it is never possible. That knowledge never comes like the pouring of water in a vessel. A vessel is empty and I must pour water. No, I already have the concepts. A small child is already having the concepts. All the concepts are there. External world is just a stimulus to enkindle those concepts and the knowledge comes out. So now you will understand all those piecemeal concepts which are lying in the dark are tamas, in the dark. When the external stimuli comes, that external stimuli, that is the light, that is the knowledge, that is the sattva. That's why all the organs of perception, jnanendriyas, are sattva. The scripture says, eyes, ears, they're purely sattva. Because through that the stimulus is coming. And what happens? So in the night I was sleeping, the idea of that flower was there in my mind, but it was hidden. I wake up, open my eyes, look out through the window, I see a wonderful red, fragrant rose. What has happened? That red rose has become an external occasion to stimulate all those things which were lying hidden. And I immediately get the picture. All those piecemeal perceptions are synthesized to give me the idea of that rose. And next thing what I do? I go out. Now my karmendriyas are active. You're responding to that stimuli. I go out, pluck the flower. I am a devotee. I come and put it in the altar where I have placed my deity there. And I feel that devotion, the effulgence of the devotion coming from me. So what has happened? The stimuli, external stimuli, has enkindled the dark mind, the tamas. Sattva is enkindling the tamas to get converted into rajas, into activity. So in our scripture they say these three guna constitutes the entire world. Now you will understand that how the three gunas constitute the entire world. What's in their world apart from these three? All the idea which you see in the external world, whatever you're seeing, is there hidden in the mind as the idea. External world is just a suggestion. It's just the suggestion to be enkindled by the proper stimuli. And then it finds expression as a response. Is there anything apart from that? So that's why Triguna is nothing but the Sattva, Raja, Tama, which finds expression as the stimuli response conditioning. Now when, with the help of Smriti Parishuddhi, you get rid of your I, you get the idea that I am something eternal. This limited I is not me. Then what happens? The stimuli response conditions starts weakening. Nothing can harm me. Nothing can really nourish me. So this stimuli response starts falling off. And that is the idea of guna with Trishna. So now you will understand the sutra very nicely. What is happening with the Purusha Khyati, with the constant contemplation of your spiritual dimension, you are getting rid of the gunas, the stimuli response conditioning. And that's how the avyakta vasana, because once the hub is taken out, now all the spikes along with the will collapse together. So now you need not have to think of getting rid of the vasanas one by one. You need not bother that there are so many avyakta vasanas. How can I get rid of them? It happens in one go. So now you will understand what is the short-term measure and what is the long-term measure. I take care of my Vyakta Vasana to calm down my mind so that now I can pursue my spiritual practice by constantly contemplating on my divine nature, so that at last the stimuli response conditioning gets weakened, starts falling off. This stimuli response conditioning falling off can be understood with another wonderful example. Swami Vivekananda is saying that as a parivrajaka, when he was passing through the deserts, suddenly he was very thirsty. The deserts of Rajasthan, he was passing through, he was thirsty, and he was in search of water, and suddenly he saw a huge reservoir at a distance. He started proceeding towards it. The more he proceeded, it appeared that it is receding, and after some time he didn't see it, as if suddenly it vanished. And then that idea struck that from childhood in the textbook I have read about mirage. For the first time I have experienced it. Now what happens? This results in guna vitrishna. The stimuli response conditioning will break. How? Swamiji is saying that next day when I am again passing through the desert, again I am thirsty. Now as I am in the body-mind complex, again I see that reservoir again. But today there is a great difference. Yesterday there was a stimuli response conditioning. Seeing that reservoir, I was dragged towards it. Today it cannot drag me. Now it has got weakened. I know it is a mere projection. So that's the breaking of the stimuli response conditioning, and that helps in this breaking of the collapse of the stimuli response conditioning with the help. How we are doing it? With the help of Purusha Khyati. Constantly thinking of the spiritual dimension, the real me. This apparent me gets weakened, asmita falls off, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha falls off, and that results in the guna vitrishna. And in one go, you are getting rid of all the vasanas. And that's how this avyakta vasana becomes the cause of the retention of chitta in the seed form unless I get rid of them. Sometimes we give too much importance to the vyakta vasanas. It's good. We have to take care of them, all the vrats, all the fasting, vows we do. The problem is they are very good, but most of us think them to be the be-all and end-all of spiritual life. No. Yes, they help us to a great extent to get rid of the vyakta vasanas and to calm down my mind. But that's not the be-all and end-all. The contemplation is the be-all and end-all. The constantly thinking of the divine. That's why there is a famous poem of Mirabai, that where he says that prem lagana chahiye manava preet karna chahiye. That unless the devotion for the Lord comes, all those practices are meaningless. If by taking bath, I become pure, the fish remains in the water always, then they are the most purest being. If just by taking vegetarian diet, I become pure, the cow is there, all the grazing animals are there, then they are the most pure thing. That doesn't mean that I shouldn't do that. They are not the be all and end all. They're good. After that, this to take care of the avyakta, that spiritual contemplation, the bhakti, that should come into picture. Then only you can really get rid of the seed. If the seed is there, it is, as Ramakrishna gave an example, a seed was lying on the terrace for decades. And one day it was blown by the wind, it fell in the ground and immediately it sprouted. That's what happens if we are not taking care of the avyakta vasanas. Kaivalya, or the final liberation, can happen only when we have, through the devotion or through the contemplation of your real divine nature, you have taken care of the avyakta vasana. So this transcending stimuli response conditioning through Purusha Khyati is the Paravairagya. So now you will understand what a wonderful way the Yoga Sutra is dealing with our psyche. So today's discussion, we will say again, end up with one of the wonderful example of Ramakrishna. He's saying that Vairagya ektu ektu kore hoy na. You cannot think of Vairagya in a sequential pattern, that I renounce this thing today, again another thing today. The real Vairagya happens in one go. That story we told in some other context, again we will tell. These funny stories of Ramakrishna actually helps us to draw the point. It remains in our mind. We will never forget. He's saying a very funny story that one day a villager, a man, was about to go out for a dip in the village pond to have his bath, to just take a bath. He was about to go out. And suddenly When he was about to go out, he was just wearing the loincloth and there was a towel on the shoulder, nothing else. And the wife suddenly commented, "Oh, you are so attached. Just see the neighbor, that person, he has a wonderful renunciation." Then the man was a bit inquisitive. He asked, "What you have seen in him that makes you feel he's a person who has developed detachment?" Then the wife told, "He has 12 wives and he is renouncing them one by one." And Ramakrishna, and he's telling the story, very funny story. He's saying, "This man told, 'You fool,' he's just addressing his wife. Can that way anyone renounce one by one? You don't know what's renunciation. You want to see renunciation? Now I renounce. I'm not going to come back." And he leaves never to come back again. Just see what Ramakrishna is indicating. He was just wearing the loincloth and had the towel in his shoulders. He never came back to just plan his renunciation. There's some basic minimal things I need. Let me pack them and take them. Nothing. Renunciation comes in one go, he lives. So that's a wonderful story. So here that story indicates that para vairagya, that one by one renunciation is okay to take care of the vyakta vasanas for the time being. But that way the real renunciation can never happen. It can happen only through the para vairagya, where by being constantly aware of your spiritual dimension, you are constantly hammering on the hub of your personality, hub of the will, which is your individual, the sense of limited individuality, and that hub is the asmita. You're getting rid of that, and all the vasanas which are all hinged to it, it all falls off at one time, taking you to that ultimate realization of the kaivalya. Once the seed is burned, it cannot sprout. This burnt seed is called kushala. Dagdha klesha is kushala. So our aim is to burn, not just to keep the seed away from the soil so that it may not sprout. It has to be burned with the viveka khyati, with the knowledge about their spiritual dimension, whether as a bhakta or as a jnani, to get rid of this limited sense of individuality, to enable you to get established in that para vairagya. So that's why you will find that though this sutra is speaking of vairagya, but it has already spoken of the entire spiritual process. So that's the beauty of these sutras. As we proceed, they will take up one idea and they will take you to the ultimate state. And that's the wonderful. And that way, all those practices together becomes the various approaches to reach the same goal. It accelerates the process. Means instead of getting hinged to one practice, you take them all together. Sri Ramakrishna used to give a wonderful example. With this, we will end up to today's class. The example was the way the goldsmith smelts the gold in the village in the olden days. Now, of course, advanced process is there. To get the optimum temperature of the fire in which he's trying to smelt the gold, what he's doing, he's blowing the fire with a hand fan. He's using his hands. There is a paddle in his feet, which he's constantly rotating that paddle. That also is fixed to a fan, which is fanning the fire. And there is a pipe in his mouth, with which again he's blowing the air. So all he's using his hand, his mouth, his feet to get that optimum temperature. So all this practice, instead of just trying to get hinged to one practice, resort to all this practice so that you can use all your faculties to really get that escape velocity from the bondage of this so-called the quagmire of ignorance, which we call this phenomenal existence, and be free. So that's the idea behind these sutras. So with this, we stop our discussion today. So namaskar.
Thank you. Thank you, Swamiji. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Namaste.
Very nice.
Namaskar. Thank you, Swamiji.
Namaskar.
Namaskar, Swamiji.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you. Namaskar.